Journalists working in areas of armed conflict are protected under international humanitarian law, just like civilians. But Israel has been accused of violating those rules repeatedly. Palestinian journalists say Israel is trying to kill the messenger and silence the story. Now, a new report by a Palestinian Prisoners Society says journalists are being arrested as well as killed. Israeli forces have detained 80 Palestinian journalists since October, both in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. 49 are in Israeli custody, including 4 female media workers. A report by the Committee to Protect Journalists last year said Israel is one of the world's leading jailers of journalists, joining the ranks of countries such as China, Russia and Iran. And Israel's war on Gaza has also been the worst on record for the number of deaths of media workers. 147 journalists and media workers have been killed by Israeli forces in 8 months. Well, let's now speak to Daoud Kuttab, who's a Palestinian journalist and free press advocate, who's joining us from Jordan's capital, Amman. Thank you very much for being with us. Let's start with the arrests first. 80 journalists arrested since October by Israel. Why? Under what pretext? And what have they been charged with?
Well, the problem is the Israelis don't have a recognition of Palestinian journalists. For them, all Palestinians are the same, and for many, they're all terrorists. So there's no specific statue for journalists. They don't give them press cards, they don't recognize them, and as we saw with Shireen Abu Akleh, they have no problems in shooting and killing them. With the Palestinian journalists being arrested in Gaza and West Bank, they are arrested as part of the administrative detention orders, which is an arrest without trial, without charge. They're just held without any legal basis, except based on 1945 emergency laws. And so we have about 3,900 Palestinians today behind bars without a charge. They're kind of like the hostages in Gaza. They're held without charge, without a trial. And the journalists are not recognized as journalists. That's the biggest problem. Plus, the Israelis have not allowed any international journalists to enter Gaza. And that's a huge problem, because every war in the world, we've seen international journalists being able to cover it, except Gaza. Gaza has not allowed any external journalists, and the only journalists that are covering it are Palestinians who are being shot and killed and, as you said, arrested.
Yeah. And Palestinian journalists, as we know, have always faced very difficult circumstances, even before the October 7th attacks. How much worse has it gotten since for them?
Oh, as you said, it is the worst country now in the world in the way they deal with journalists, in the way they kill, arrest, and harass journalists. And we know that also media outlets are being pressured to kind of toe the Israeli line. But on the Palestinian side, the journalists are treated exactly like everybody else. They don't accept the the humanitarian law, which is the law of the war, that states that journalists should be immune from any attacks and so on. And so we've seen over 130 journalists in Gaza being killed, in addition to Shireen Abu Akleh, an American journalist. Until this moment, we have not seen a single report about Israel investigating this. And if there was an American journalist killed anywhere in the world, we would see a lot more pressure on Israel to come up with the facts. So we have a problem in that Israel is trying to hide the facts and trying to kill the messenger.
And so how do we solve this problem? How do we make sure that there is justice for these more than 100 journalists and media workers who've been killed during this conflict?
Well, I think we have to work on a number of levels. International media organizations must keep pressuring Israel, but also we have to work on the Israeli syndicate. I think international syndicates should either boycott or ensure that the Israeli syndicate issues a statement every time a Palestinian is arrested, harassed, or killed. And unless the Israeli syndicate stands up for Palestinian rights like their fellow journalists, I think people should boycott the Israeli syndicate until they actually act in a proper way in protecting fellow journalists. So we have to work on the international level, and also I think we need to boycott the Israeli Journalists Association.
Thank you for speaking to us and sharing your insight and experience. Daoud Kuttab, Palestinian journalist and a free press advocate, joining us there from Amman. Thank you very much for your time.
Welcome.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.